And welcome to another biddle for Saturday, July 11th, 2020 for our special Europe edition. How's everybody doing?
Heyo.
Well,
Doing really well.
Doing great.
Good. Doing good.
All right. So,
Don't forget the light.
oh, Tony, you are the man. We are officially open for business. And you know what? There are times where we talk about the distro that we're going to, do on the regular edition of Biddle, but I don't know how many of you guys, most of you guys will probably be there for the regular Biddle. If there's anybody here that wants to talk about Ubuntu Lumina and have tried it this week, I'm open to talking about it, but we'll probably cover that in the regular show. Any takers?
Yeah, I tried it, but I will most likely be at the regular show.
Okay. All right. So we are going to move on. I would like to thank Michael not Michael Tennell. I'd rather not say his last name because I don't know if he wants me to say his last name, but he messaged me on Discord and talked to me about the audio visualizer that I was referring to last week. And he gave me specific instructions on how to install it in OBS. And I had followed similar instructions, but still couldn't get it installed. And I did end up getting it working, and the plugin for that works great in OBS. Was able to make a whole video with a visualizer on it, and it turned out great. I mean, it just happens to be Linux user space video, right? But I was able to make that. And that video is uploaded and ready to release on Monday. So there you go. All right. So I just wanted to relay another thing as far as kind of a housekeeping thing. I get a lot of emails from people emailing in, and I don't always cover every email, but as a great podcast always says, we may not always read on the show your emails, but we read every one. And I guess that's the same way with where I'm at. So I don't always read every email, but I do. No, let me restate that. I don't always cover every email on this show, but I always read every email, and I appreciate the feedback. So just so you know, if you email in, you can talk about whatever you want. All right. Well, I'm going to open it up to you guys if you have anything you want to cover, and then maybe we'll run into some other topics, but does anybody have anything they want to bring up? Tony?
Yeah, it's this came out of a question, an email to Mintcast, and I just wondered what you guys feel about it. What would your preferred method of upgrading be from, say, Mint 19 to Mint 20? Would you do the inline update, or would you do a complete Newton reinstall?
Nuke and pave. For me, that's for me. Nuke and pave.
What would we prefer? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, what's your take on it? Do you feel it's better to do a Newton pave, or do you think the inline install works okay, and that's probably the easiest one for most people?
I'd prefer.
As well?
Yeah, I'd prefer an inline that works well, and we can keep going. I think it's asinine that we feel that we have to nuke and pave, but there's good reasons for that. Every so often, you just feel like you got to just wipe it and roll with it, and start over. But I'll tell you this: I've got a few, and not to compare, but I've got quite a few Mac OS machines in my house. I've got quite a few Windows machines in my office. I never choose to nuke and pave, ever. And I mean, one, it's a whole nother world of process, but two, I don't have to. It usually, you might have some glitches in the updates, but you can work them out. So yeah, for me, I'd prefer to stay on the same install that I've had. And there are people who've been successful at it. It seems more on the LTS releases, people seem to be more successful at it, but jumping from the, 2004 to 2010 to 2104, whatever. I much prefer that. I hate nuke and pave. Feels like a waste.
It's easy in Linux to nuke and pave, and I think that's where most people gravitate to, because it's so easy to reinstall everything. That's the easiest route to go. But I think that I have done upgrades, and some of them have gone well, and some of them have not gone well. And, you know, I guess the question remains in your mind as you're making that choice. Do I want to hope that it goes well and hope that I don't have problems? Or do I just want to reinstall and know that I don't have problems? And I think that's the choice that you end up making. But like this Pop OS install for the main machine, I upgraded this and it went south because of Python dependencies and everything. And luckily, Popey helped me fix it. Well, otherwise, I would have been nuke and paving to fix it. But, you know, I still have remnants left over from 1804. Like, password boxes aren't the same as they should be in 2004, like certain things. No major deal breakers, but there are just times where I think the install process of a Linux machine is way better than an upgrade process. Not to say you can't, not to say that upgrades always cause problems, but they can. Aris, go ahead.
I remember I used to do the upgrades, but I always felt and that in the back of my mind, sometimes when something weird would happen, if it was because I upgraded and I didn't do the nuke and pave. So I think it could work, but I don't know. To me, you have always in the back of your mind, is this error because of the upgrade, or is this because there's an actual error to the machine? And then I would just end up nuke and paving anyways. So,
well, that's kind of like I said, that's that train of thought or that line of thought that, you know, I could upgrade but I may end up upgrading and then having to nuke and pave anyway. So I just might as well get it out of the way. Computer Kid, go ahead.
So, first of all, is this the case for a rolling distro where you don't bundle all that fear up into one release? You just spread it out over the whole life of your machine.
Just worry every day.
Yeah. But seriously, it's a lot harder to nuke and pave on Mac or Windows because, like, first of all, it's a huge hassle to reinstall with keys. I don't even know how doable that is on a Mac. And then you have no like package list you can copy over and then run that into your package manager. Yes, maybe on Windows with their new package manager thing, but I mean, are all your packages going to come out of that? And then sometimes it actually, like on Linux, it is kind of nice. If you have like a really old machine, you've got old tests hanging around, it's kind of nice. It's kind of like a spring cleaning to just blow away everything. And then it doesn't take very long to reinstall because you could take a list of your packages and then just reinstall them and leave it for an hour, or you could just gradually build up. It's a lot easier.
Wise beyond his years.
Yes. I've done it both ways, but I would have to say that my tendency is to lean towards doing the upgrade process far more than I have just wiped things out and started over. I don't know. I find, well, and this is running Ubuntu, so I find that upgrade process runs pretty smooth for the most part. I've got machines that have been upgraded from, I think, 1204, I think, all the way up through 1804 now. And there's some gotchas there. Some things changed, obviously, along the way, but I never had any problem that I couldn't, get over, I guess. So that's gone pretty good for me.
My tendency would just be to roll for a half a year to a year, and then it gets to feel old, and then you just blow it all away. Start over again. Roll for half a year to a year, and then blow it all away. It's basically the pattern I've settled into.
One of the things that concerns me is they always warn you that you're putting your data at risk. So if they're advising you to do a backup anyway, why not just nuke and pave? Because they're actually saying that it could risk all your data. The other option is obviously to have a separate home partition that you just link to as on the reinstall. So you've not got all that to worry about.
Yeah, makes sense. Alan, what do you think?
So upgrades are difficult because if every distro, you never test every possible combination of source system and target release. So wherever you're going from and wherever you're going to, It's impossible for any distro to test every possible combination. And nobody installs a distro and then never installs any software and never configures it and then upgrades 6 months later. People muck about with their system. They add more software, and some of that software doesn't come from the repositories. Some of it is proprietary. Some of it comes from random PPAs. Some of it comes from all over the place. And it is, yeah, and people tweak their systems heavily over, well, it becomes personal to you. And so that is a unique snowflake system, and upgrading that unique snowflake from one release to another is hard. And so the developers of all the packages and the packages of all the software have to try and think through all the possible scenarios of where they're going from and where they're going to. And sometimes that doesn't work. And so, yeah, sometimes upgrades don't work. Sometimes they're hard problems to solve, like your problem, Rocco, with Python breaking. Other times it's even worse, and you restart and you just get a black screen. And at that point, that's incredibly frustrating for the user. And the only option they have really is either call an expert, which they may not have, or reinstall. And so a lot of people have had bad experiences with upgrades over the years, and they then tell everyone, don't upgrade because they don't work. When in fact, a large majority of people, they do work, they work just fine. But when it doesn't work, it's a catastrophe. It's and so people would rather not go down the path of having a catastrophic upgrade and instead choose, well, why would I put myself through the pain of potentially upgrading and getting a black screen when I could just back all my stuff up, do a clean install, and I'll get a fresh system. It's a hard one to call. And if you're an expert like us, you can probably fix it, or you can call someone who can fix it. But a normal user, that's an awful position to put someone in.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there. I think the adding PPAs, adding extra software from other extraneous sources is a lot of where the problem certainly comes from when you have problems upgrading. I think the closer you keep it to the cookie cutter, then the better experience the upgrade's going to be, because those are the things that I think can get tested in QA before things get released. It's far too difficult to test every possible scenario.
Right. And I think that's partly why some distros are starting to head down the like if you look at something like Android and the way it upgrades, there's an image, a read-only zip file that gets splattered onto your phone. It's not that every single package is atomically upgraded like it is on like Debian. With Debian, if you do an upgrade from one release to another, you're actually just upgrading every package one after the other. Whereas the Android way and the iOS way is this big blob of stuff just gets splattered onto the disk, and that's your new version. And some of the Linux distros are starting to do that with things like Silverblue, where you have a read-only image, and it just takes away that problem because you don't have all these packages being upgraded. You just have a read-only image that gets splattered onto the disk and blows away your old release, and you've got a new release with all your software, however that was installed, Flatpak or whatever, on top. And I think you're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see more distros move towards a read-only image that makes it more easy to upgrade from one release to another, just like it is on mobile phones.
Yeah,
Does that
makes
make it more
sense.
difficult to play with, though?
So that's the challenge, isn't it? It's what about the experts in the room who say, I don't want a read-only file system. I want to poke that specific file and I want to fiddle it in a very specific way. And that file is on my computer. How dare you tell me that I can't edit that file? You get that perspective for sure. But the flip, and some of them, there'll be a switch you can fiddle somewhere that makes it read right. Okay. And so you get given the gun and all the bullets, and you can shoot yourself if you want to, but out of the box, you don't get the gun and you don't get the bullets. So, it's a trade-off. And if you're looking for simplicity for the vast majority of users and ease of use and ease of upgrades for the vast majority of users, then you make it as easy as possible. And that may well be making it read-only for sure.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I know like macOS does something similar where they just drop a whole giant image on your machine. I think the biggest issue, well, maybe not the biggest, one of the issues that is presented from that is the image's size get really large. And so downloading an update that is now 8 gigabytes or something every time you update is time consuming. So
How does that work with applications like non-containerized applications? If you have a read-only root file system, and let's say you just want to add something like Telegram, but that's not part of the core image. So then how would that be added? It seems like that would have to be a snap or a flatpak.
Typically, the way it works is you have the read-only operating system and the kernel and all the low-level stuff, and then all the additional applications are file system overlays on top. And so once all those applications are installed, if you look at the file system, it looks like, to all intents and purposes, it looks like there is /opt/telegram or wherever it lives, right? But actually those files are abstracted away and they're actually in another read-only blob somewhere else. But in order to have legacy compatibility and for familiarity in file browsers and stuff, it looks like they're all in the same file system. But if you dig deeper, you see they're just layers upon layers upon layers.
all right, thanks. Dave Jones, jump right in there.
Nuke and pave. I have to tell you, I have no patience, and it is so much faster to nuke and pave as long as you have like a bash script with all the programs to install. It's like 10 minutes to install the new distro, and then you just start downloading your packages, and you're like, to me, it feels like it cuts like a half hour off of the upgrade process. And it's just, I have no patience waiting for the upgrade to happen.
Interesting. So I think where I see this being important, especially, is when you look at manufacturers. So System 76, Tuxedo Computers, some of these others, I'm sure they would love to have the average user who doesn't need to poke at the OS or poke at the lower level stuff. And they want them to be able to just, hey, we have a new release, hit upgrade and work. Because I think it's a lot more difficult to ask those users, hey, just nuke and pave your system, because if you went to Dell or you went to Mac or you went to IB or ThinkPad, Lenovo, they would never tell you that, right? They rare that they would say, if you were running a standard, Windows operating system or whatever, I've never had a tech go, let's just blow it out and restart. I think that ability, hopefully, and maybe to Alan's point, maybe it becomes that blob because that's what it just needs to become. But I think that's important because from a user perspective, I think it needs to become user friendly that way. Someone needs to see like, my wife who runs on her Mac for photography, she's not going to, she wants to just hit the upgrade button once a year. And here comes her 8 gigs. Yeah, I know it's huge. Or actually this year, it's probably 12. I don't know what they're putting in there. We don't use any of the software, but then you got to end up deleting pages and all the other garbage that comes with it. But it works and it's pretty seamless. And it's supported. It's not without its issues. Usually the stuff that breaks tends to be the stuff you installed. Just like with Linux, it's not part of the base system. It's a program I installed somewhere else. So I think it's important that we get to some point like that for the average user. And maybe there's 2 images available. Who knows? It's a lot more to maintain. Eris, what do you think about it?
So I had a Chromebook that I installed some PPAs because I only have like 15, 16 gigabytes to work with. And I can upgrade that. So I added that, and like a year and a half later, I couldn't get Suspend working anymore. So I don't know what broke. Obviously, I'm installing packages that are not in there. They shouldn't be in there probably. But now I nuked and paved, and I'm starting to use snaps, but I do have the storage problem. So I wish Snap you could limit to 1 package only. I know 2 packages is the limit for the lowest number of packages. I know because that way if something breaks, it was a backup package. But I wish it could go down to 1, so that way I would have more space. I guess that's just my own personal problem.
Chromebooks. They are their own personal problem. I think they have their own unique set of situation there.
They're 50%
Jason.
computer, 50% problem.
Yeah, Jason.
It's more 20% computer, 80% problem. I have to troubleshoot those at work. Most horrible things on the planet. but yes, interesting story. We're talking about nuke and pave and stuff like that. Is that typically I am not here at this time because I'm normally at work. My work system over here, they did not nuke and pave. They pushed down security updates. Those security updates did not install properly, thus borking my computer and making it so I can use a computer just fine. I can do all that stuff, but I cannot connect to the work network. I can connect to the VPN, but because the security updates were not installed properly, it quarantined my system so I cannot work. So that was a fun start to my day today. So I got to troubleshoot that and try to figure it out. But then, lo and behold, I can't access anything on an administrative level on my system because I'm not on the network. But as far as my personal computers go, it's nuke and pave all the way. I have all my systems, minus the laptops, all have separate OS drives. I have a, they each have the NVMe drives for the boot drives, and then SSDs for like games and things like that, and then NAS storage for storage of important files. So if I have to nuke and pave, I don't lose anything. The programs that I've downloaded are all set to the side. The downloads that I downloaded are set to the side, and I can just reinstall them as they come. Or if I did it by command line on a Linux machine, then I don't have a whole bunch of programs that are on there because I don't do anything professional on the Linux machine. That's just my tinker box most cases. I have to use a Windows machine for work, so that's where all the important stuff, expensive programs are, I should say. But as far as my personal systems go, yeah, it's all nuke and pave. I do not trust. I turned off. I went into this the actual services and system files and whatever you want to call it, and Windows, and shut off all access to automatic updates. So the updates show up in the update, in this Windows updater thing, but they won't download or install unless I go in there and click them, because I refuse to have my machine borked by a stupid Windows update like this 2004 update. I did push that through on a system and an AMD system, so I ended up having to switch back to an Intel system for now because for some reason things happened and I don't feel like troubleshooting the AMD system right now. Don't have the time. But I'll get back to that when I have time to mess with it. But more likely it's going to be a nuke and pave again because that was my brother's system and he didn't turn off automatic updates. But anyway, so yeah, my biggest advice to anybody out there just put your OS on one drive, important files on another drive. I don't know whether it's Linux, Windows, Mac, or whatever. Mac OS is easy to nuke and pave. Computer Kid, I know you were saying you didn't know how it is on there. You just hold down you just hold down the Option button on the Mac keyboard, brings you to the boot screen, select your drive, and then you just install and nuke and pave. It's very, very simple.
It is easy. I wanted to go back to Tony's question, make sure I understood it, because he said, "What would we prefer?" So I know what we're doing. I know we are nuking and look, we are nuking and paving. I had an issue with my Linux Mint install. I was testing out the Linux Mint install. I probably could have figured it out. I was like, heck no. Boom. It was gone. I was back in exactly where I was in a half hour. I know that's what we're doing, but I kind of took his question as, what would we prefer? Would we prefer that the upgrade cycle worked, that we trusted it, and that it was, because I just feel like, if we're going to pull in new users and the not technical, the non-expert, Alan said we're all experts in here, by the way. I was so excited to hear that I'm an expert for a few minutes. But yeah, it is easy for all of us in here to just go boop, done. I'll tell you, if my wife had to nuke and pave Mac OS, I'd be doing it, right? Or somebody else would be doing it. And not everybody has a nerd next door, right, that can do it. So it does feel like it would be nice if we could get this figured out,
Well, the answer to that question for Tony is yes. I would nuke and pave, regardless of. I've learned over the years that at 20 plus years of we're doing IT, nuke and pave is the way to go. There's not just with Windows machines. I'm talking Windows. I worked as a senior advisor for Apple on the Mac team, so I got to troubleshoot people's Macs over the phone or remote into them, and have to do guide them on how to do nuke and paves over the phone, because they try to do updates got borked, or they because like you said, somebody said that there's no way of knowing. I think it might have been Alan said there's no way of knowing every configuration of every system. So when you're downloading a just doing an upgrade on something. It could be something that's configured on your system that they didn't realize when they're doing the update, and the update doesn't like it. And that's happened so many times with like Apple machines when I was working for them, and nuke and pave. And unfortunately, there was a lot of people that didn't understand the concept of backing up. That's another discussion for another time. And so there was a lot of angry people because nuke and pave was the only option at the point. How far the damage that the upgrade did, and they didn't back up, so they couldn't actually back up because a lot of stuff got corrupted. So, but nuke and pave for me.
I would prefer to update or upgrade. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that I'm impatient a lot of times, I would do it. And with work, we're up until Windows 10. I dreaded every time I had to do an update with the Windows computers at work, because the biggest problem with those is drivers for everything. It's not like with Windows 10, it got a little bit better with automatically knowing and installing the drivers. But with Windows 7 and before, you always had to go out and find all the drivers for everything, for every
Nightmare.
printer and and NIC card and everything on the motherboard. You had to find a driver.
Yep.
Man, oh, what a nightmare that was. But
I remember those days.
Yeah, but I mean, I actually ran Arch for a little while because I was really tempted with the idea of just always upgrading. But when I'm doing work, on my computers, I just, I still don't trust Arch enough to do that. So I want something that's, that has a strict upgrade structure, but at the same time, I have no patience.
I learned patience the hard way. It's called dealing with people and their tech issues, or dealing with the public in general. Because I was also in retail management for about, I'll say probably about 10 years. And 7 of that was like at one company, Champ Sports here locally. And I tell you, you learn a lot of patience when you're dealing with the public face to face, because they are some of the most rude people, me people ever.
Big Pod. What do you do? Nuke or pave?
I nuke and pave. I nuke and pave. That is for multiple reasons. First of all, I am kinda afraid of those upgrades because I know there is a big chance I will be doing nuke and pave anyway, and hearing many of the horror stories of what happened. For example, last week someone told me one. So yeah, and I'm also from Arch world, so big updates are scary thing. Don't do big updates. So a reason why I don't do upgrades. You do either small incremental upgrades or nuke and pave.
It's understandable. Thank you. Osaid, OSAID.
I always I use Arch, so basically it's just upgrading for me. When I used to use Mint, I also used to upgrade. Yeah, it will break some stuff eventually, like with the same thing with Ubuntu, with whatever distro that uses the like the normal update method. But I rolled with it. Like it wasn't so annoying to the point that it warranted a nuke and pave. But since ever since I switched to Arch, I didn't have to nuke and pave at all.
It's funny when a new LTS version of Ubuntu comes out, and we see the number of install. As you know, during the installer at the end, it asks you, "Do you want to submit some data to Canonical?" And from that, we have a gauge of how many people are doing a clean install, because you only see that on a clean install. And so it's interesting to see the number of people installing a new LTS after the LTS comes out, and the number of people using the previous LTS going down as people switch almost immediately from the current LTS to the next. And then a few months later, when the point release comes out, a whole bunch more people switch, and you see these like bumps as it goes through the life cycle of new LTSs. So there's certainly like a chunk of people out there who do clean installs and a chunk of people who do upgrades. I don't know what the split is. I've got no idea. But Tony's original question, what would we like? For sure, I would like what Dell do on every install. So if you buy a Dell XPS 13, it's got a recovery partition. And yeah, that eats a bit of disk, but imagine every Linux install having a recovery partition so that in the event that it all messes up, you can just press a magic button and reboot into the installer, and you don't have to plug a USB key in or go and burn a DVD or whatever. I would love for that. I'd love it if every Linux install, it gave you the option to put a recovery partition at the front of the disk or at the back of the disk and allow you to, reinstall your system later down the line without having to go and scrabble around for a USB key and DD and ISO somewhere and all that kind of nonsense that's, from the past.
So why don't we have something like that yet?
Because it's code that someone's got to write, and it's got to cater for lots of different things like, nerds. The thing that Dell can do is because they control the image, they work with us to make the image that goes on the machine, and they know exactly what the machine has. So they put all the hardware drivers on there, and their customers tell them, I want an easy way to recover the system. Whereas when you or I install Ubuntu or whatever distro, there are lots of options to choose there. And so it's very different from, an image that's splatted in the factory is very different from an image where a user has lots of buttons they can fiddle and choose to do full disk encryption or not, and choose to partition the disk in a particular way, whereas Dell completely controlled the way that disk is laid out. And so it's much more easier for them to control and manage. So it's just a hard thing to do. It would be great if, we could get there at some point, and whether Calamares or Ubiquity or whatever other installers there are could support that, that would be awesome.
Tony, go ahead.
I was going to say to Alan, do you think the Mint time shift kind of gives us a little bit of the best of both worlds?
I've never used time shift. I've never really looked at it. As I understand it, it's supposed to be a bit like the Mac time machine thing for backup and restore. I wouldn't want to be disparaging about the software, but from what I've heard of people looking at the code, I wouldn't trust it. So yes, it's good to have backups, and a good working backup is better than no backup. But I wouldn't put my faith in something like that if I was doing a full system install. I'm not trying to be disparaging about the software, but I would want good faith in the software if I was going to trust it like that.
It's
Tony,
definitely
have you used it to restore from?
Have I used time shift? No, I haven't actually. Because basically it is so easy to nuke and pave that that is my go-to.
This is our problem. It's too easy. We need to make it harder to nuke and pave, everyone. That's the solution.
But nuke and pave is the way to go.
Let's make Linux harder. Let's do it. That's the solution. That's it.
I just have 2 4-gig hard drives as my data backup, and then I just wipe everything, reinstall, and within half an hour I've got everything back as it was.
I mean, because that is
Everyone has to use Arch. You'll never just nuke and pave for an update.
Arch is the answer to all things. But that is an interesting point, Tony, because that is right. I mean, if it is too difficult to create that recovery partition because of all the different variables, but if you did have a nice image backup system that kind of like Time Machine does for Mac OS, something like that, because what is nice is when you plug in a new, my wife had an old Mac Mini, I brought in a new Mac Mini and I plugged it in and it was like, hey, there's all your stuff. Do you want it? Yes. Boom. Here's the exact same computer with new hardware. That would be really cool. And that is a software thing that could be built into a distro. It doesn't affect the installation process. It might be something worth Anyways, just a thought.
Well, I think that the Mac part of it, the reason that it works well is because of the fact that most of your stuff is in the cloud and it can just pull everything down that you had on your machine before. So,
cloud's so safe, though.
And
but it's so safe. There's no way anybody would ever get to it. I mean, it's nothing malicious. There's no bad actors in the world. I mean, just throw it all in the cloud.
The reason I say that is because I don't think that would go over well in the Linux world. So
would not. Wouldn't go over well in this room. These 12 squares on our screen.
Well, I do back up some stuff to the cloud.
Yeah.
Yes, but I'm not going to pull down like a whole operating system off the cloud or anything. No, it's just like pictures and stuff off the phone and the iPad and that type of thing.
Well, but to that point, I'm actually we're not doing it to the cloud. Ours is backed up to a local drive, so I'm using an external hard drive, and Time Machine is just overwriting that image every time something changes. Just no different than probably Backblaze or anybody else is overwriting your backed up image into the cloud. But anyways,
I think
I do back. I back up to the cloud. Back up to I have an external, NAS thing. It's not really a NAS system, but I have a computer that I use. I just have a file server. I use a couple 4 terabyte drives, actually 4 terabyte drives. And we just back up. My brother and I just back up to it centrally, and it has all our movies and all that kind of stuff on there. So it's.
I think the difference there is not the data. The difference with the Mac is when you hit the button and say put the things back on my system that were on my system before,
it knows where they're
going.
It
knows and has
it does say the app data, but that is an option. You don't have to include the app data if you don't want to.
I'm not talking about the app data. Hang on.
No, the image itself.
I'm talking about the applications because they control the store and they have a repository that's got all the system images in. That's a thing that needs to live forever, because if at any point in the future you decide you want to nuke and pave your Mac, that repository of software has to be there. Whereas the Linux world moves on, like every 6 months a new release, and archives will throw away old versions of software. And so to restore your system to the point it was in when you first bought the thing is actually a tricky endeavor. Either you put a copy of everything on the machine, or you put it somewhere, and you as the distro maintainer will have to maintain that thing forever, so that anyone who decides they want to reinstall can go and get that software and reinstate their system as it was on day one. And that's quite a commitment for anyone to do.
It's a big ask. Yeah.
Harris.
So talking about that partition recovery, I've never liked the idea of that, because especially in Windows, like how much incentive would a hacker be to put a virus on that partition, and then you're just reinstalling to the same virus? Like I wish it was like MX Linux. I know they have like an ability so you can put it like in a thumb drive, and you just use that thumb drive to use your customized version. That way, nobody's touching that hard drive until you put it into your computer, and everything is clean that way.
But isn't that recovery partition? I think it's off limits. I don't think you can just monkey with it. I don't think it's open to viruses like that are installed on it's separate from the OS, if I understand it correctly. I think
it's supposed
the only
to
way
be secure.
Yeah, the only way to get into it.
You can also add a USB with a recovery partition that's basically the same as the one on your system, even though the system one is supposed to be offline unless you boot into it, and it's supposed to be disabled and some other security precautions about it. So there shouldn't be easy way of adding viruses onto it, even though you can create your own, which is actually been prompted to you if you create an image of your system in the OS itself. So it will prompt you to create a recovery image on a CD or a USB.
Yeah. So one of the things that we do is, as far as the backing up goes, is we also have a 4 tera drive that has the important stuff that we want to keep on it, movies, whatever. But that is not in a system. That gets taken out of the system, stored into a safe, like a little box thing that you can get for them. And then when we make, add enough movies or whatever back to our server and stuff, we'll slip that back in, and then just back up, back up the files back to it again, take it out. That way it's separate. So if anything happens to the system, viruses or whatever, we have a copy of everything that hasn't been in the system for XYZ amount of time. So normally it's going to be missed by that, intrusion or whatever.
Yeah. Offline backups are a really smart plan. Computer Kid, go ahead. Get your hand up.
Yeah, so this could be kind of a case for something like ZFS. Rocco tried to lower my hand at the same time I did, and I ended up raising it. But
I didn't.
Something like ZFS, where you can do a snapshot of your important data, and then unless your hard drive fails, if you're doing a striped VDEV, meaning you only have one disk, you've still got your old backup. And if you do an upgrade and it fails, you just roll back to your old backup, which you could do in. Is it Mint that does ButterFS, or is that SUSE?
SUSE.
Whichever one.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could do that with ButterFS or with something like ZFS en route with Ubuntu and make a snapshot. It's really easy to make a snapshot. I've actually just set up a NAS, and it's one command, 0 time, 0 data, or 0 storage lost. Because a snapshot, it doesn't actually copy all your data. It just says, this is what the data looked like. And if the data changes, then it stores a copy of whatever data changes. So I make the snapshot, it takes 0 time and 0 storage. And then I can do the update. If the update works, then I can delete the snapshot and I lost nothing. And if it doesn't work, I roll back and I've still lost nothing. So that would be a good use case for that.
Go ahead, Nate. You had something to say here.
Yeah, I was going to say I use ButterFS on OpenSUSE, of course. And I was actually trying to ascertain how long I've been running on this particular run of Tumbleweed, roll of Tumbleweed, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But the oldest one that I have that I can tell right now is since 2017. And the only time I ever actually do a nuke and pave or whatever is, it's not really nuke and pave, but it's when I change hardware. So if I decide to upgrade a drive, then I start from scratch, not just to rebaseline my system. But that's really the only time I ever do it. Even upgrading from Leap, I have a system that I've upgraded from, I think it was like Leap 42.1, and I skipped over a version, went to 15.0, and now that's on 15.2. So I don't. If my systems are broken, I'm not smart enough to pick up on it, I guess, is really what I'm boiling down to on that. But like I said, I don't have. It's worked for me. It's a system that's worked for me for a while now, and I just don't think about it.
Is the reason you're
Go ahead.
Is the reason your obsession with OpenSUSE slightly unhealthy because of all that butter?
It could be because I really like butter.
You can't have dad jokes at 13.
Right?
Yeah. Sorry, bro. You're in the wrong room. You're stepping all on our stuff, bro.
Well,
that's a Michael Tunnell thing there.
We brought up the recovery partition, and as Nick's asked in the chat, the Intel management engine security problems might make the recovery partition susceptible to malware. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think just having it there makes it susceptible. And I think things like, we'll say like Windows, where you can turn on BitLocker and stuff like that, you can encrypt all of that nonsense, and then you can't get to it. It's no good to you. And I suppose you could do the same thing in Linux. If somebody got crafty, they could probably turn it into a Lux partition or something, and then same deal.
Well, obviously it's not built yet, so
right.
You'd have to factor all that stuff in.
Alan's going to have it in a snap in before the show's over.
Right?
It's going to be the whole. Wimpy's already working on it. Let me check his live stream. Hold on. Rolling Rhino ZFS ButterFS.com snap.
See, the other problem with this is there is also so many opinions in Linux. How would we nail down one direction to go in? What file system you were going to use? What specific code you were going to use?
So we have a distro for everything.
Yeah, so we would have like 14 different partition managers, or little easy buttons to reinstall Linux, and it's hard. It's very hard.
I think it has to come to Alan's point earlier about Dell, and I would say Lenovo's probably on the similar path. I think it would need to come from like a System 76, like a manufacturer, and it may be specific to that specific distro, or an industry leader like Canonical or RHEL. So somebody works that into and then that will filter down. Now, Mint, of course, is going to be like, nah, we don't want that, so we're going to do our own thing. But that's fine. It's there and it's available, but somebody's working on it, and then it can be there for adoption, just like anything else. Every time you change anything in Linux, 100 people are going to demand it. Then you change it. 99 of them won't like it the way you change it, and then they'll go do it their way. But the one that likes it, he'll use it, and then he'll adopt it, and he'll keep working on it, and it'll grow. But someone's got to be working on it at all. It doesn't feel like it's front and center at all. I don't know.
It's not.
Well, we did.
Yeah.
We worked with Dell on it. So
okay, we'll see.
We've done that. So
it's done. Can I get it on my? Well, I've got a brand new XPS here. Can I get it on my Dell? I want the partition.
Ask Dell.
Yeah.
Since you brought up Dell and that like changes like these have to have a behemoth backing them up. Dell, as Alan said, Dell customizes the ISO they use on their machines, and they like include the drivers and whatnot. But Lenovo, they're upcoming, or I'm not actually sure if they're released already. But the Fedora ThinkPads, they don't change anything with the ISO. They just include documentation and they just include documentation with the installation, but they don't change anything with the distro. They don't include drivers. They don't include anything because they upstream everything. Why does Dell do that? Like, why does they change it as opposed to upstreaming everything?
So I know that the requirement for Lenovo to do that with Fedora specifically was a requirement set by the Fedora developers. That was mandated by Fedora, who said everything must be done in this particular way. And that's their prerogative to make that decision. The way it works with Dell is they send us, and other manufacturers like Lenovo, they send us machines long before they ever appear in the shops, long before they ever go on sale. And our hardware engineers in Taipei will do the hardware enablement with that manufacturer and will upstream stuff. But the manufacturer has tight timescales to get that product to market. And so often the drivers or tweaks or whatever's required in order to get that hardware working. Let's say, for example, it's a touchpad and the touchpad is skippy, but with these tweaks it works, or with this additional driver changes it works. That stuff is bundled into a kernel that works for that machine so that they can ship it quickly, because it's important to them to be able to deliver Linux on those machines as soon as possible. That stuff then gets upstreamed, but it's important to them to get the stuff out the door as fast as possible. And so we work with them to do that.
Love the insight.
Yep. All right. Anybody else have anything else on like that whole subject? Tony, how, you said you brought this up, but was it brought up in the Mint forums, or how did you bring that up?
No, we got an email to Mintcast.
Oh.
And we're going to be discussing it on the show tomorrow when we record, because it'll be in the feedback section. Obviously, it won't actually go out as an episode until the second week, because it's the second half of the show. But I've responded to it on both counts. The options were to nuke and pave, or to, do the rolling update. And I gave, reasons which a lot of people have given the similar reasons that I gave for both scenarios. One is you're risking your data and things like that, and this stuff left behind, you might as well nuke and pave if you want to make sure you've got rid of everything. But I was just interested to see what another bunch of geeks all using Linux might think about it. And
how dare you?
It's really good to hear everyone's different views.
Yep.
Tony, did you give us your view?
Well, like I say, I have done the rolling update. I've got experience of both. Sometimes I nuke and pave, depending on if I've got an issue. But to tell you the truth, quite honestly, I'm a bit like Computer Kid. You know, usually after about 12 or 18 months, my computer gets wiped and reinstalled anyway, because I've usually got a few issues that I need to resolve. So even before 20 came out, my computer had a reinstall about 3 or 4 months ago. So
next week on Midcast, go listen to Biddle.
Yeah.
No, I think I have plenty to talk about.
Yeah.
So along with that, talking about upgrades and we need to again call out the fact that 1910 is ending support.
Yes.
Dan, go ahead.
Yeah. This Friday coming up will be the end of support for 1910. So you want to make sure you get upgraded to 2004 or get yourself a reinstall.
Yep. Now, I don't know, Alan, is there any numbers on how many people are still using the interim releases?
Not that I can tell you, but there's public data that you could see. For example, let me just have a quick look at what.
Distro Watch, their numbers are always accurate. Let me check that. Hold on.
I was thinking like Snapcraft is not a bad thing to look at. You can see number
Comedy
of
Gold
snaps installed. Yeah.
So if you go to snapcraft.io/core18, CORE18, that gives you an idea of like snaps being installed, right? And I know that's not a great metric because some people don't have any and some people remove it, yada, 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 whatever. But on the right-hand side, halfway down, if you go to snapcraft.io/core18, it says users by distribution. And there's a logarithmic graph that gives you some kind of idea of, the distributions that have it installed. And you'll notice that top of the list is Ubuntu 18.04, then 20.04, then 19.10, above 16.04. So that says to me that there's quite a lot of people still running 19.10 right now. Which, that's those people need to get a hurry on. And,
you got less than a week. Yeah.
Get upgraded. Yeah. Chop.
Honestly, I mean, it's been preached about here a few times probably. But if we catch 1 or 2 users, I feel like that's a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Alan
would
personally vouches for your upgrade process being smooth and no hiccups, right?
Yep.
Yeah, personally call me. Like, here's my card. There's my phone number. Just call me just like Rocco did when it broke for him.
I
for
did.
A distro that I don't even look after. I helped Rocco fix his pop.
He likes to drop that regularly. Like we all can just call Alan and be like, "Hey, so
I had 100 Popey.
I had
OBS
no choice in the
isn't
matter.
working right.
No choice. It was either that or reinstall right then. There was no other way. Yeah, well, what are you going to do? So, anyway, upgrade now if you're on 1910. I'm sorry, did I interrupt somebody?
No, go ahead.
Do you have any statistics on the development branch, Alan? Because like the what do you call it? The utility that was released recently, the rolling dyno, or I'm not sure about its name. Like I'm seeing some hype behind it. Do you have any data to back that hype up?
So if you scroll down that same page, you'll see loads of other distros, and then partway down, just below 1404, is Ubuntu 2010. So 2010 is that what that would show up as if you either installed Groovy Gorilla, or you upgraded from 2004 to 2010, or if you ran Martin's crazy script that turns it into a rolling rhino. If you did any of that, then you will show up as Ubuntu 2010, because that's really what it is right now. If you then in 6 months' time keep rolling and you end up on 2104, then you'll show up as 2104. But that's, I mean, again, this is just a ballpark. This isn't, super accurate. This is just a way to see relative installs. But you can see there that 2010 has, a fair number of people using it. There are other ways to see, but that's probably a quick and dirty way to see it.
I'm not sure where I heard you talk about this. I think it was Linux for everyone. But you said that you discussed you discussed turning Ubuntu into a rolling release with Martin like 6-7 years ago, and the conversation hasn't picked up apart from that time. Is the release of this utility like changing your mind a bit or making any fuss internally?
So I've had discussions with Martin about this rolling rhino. I know right now he may be watching this and he'll be getting
Hi,
frustrated because he's doing barbecue out in the garden and I'm sat here talking to you, so I can represent my point of view and not his. I don't feel like that rolling rhino is a genuine rolling experience, and me and Martin disagree on this, and we've had lengthy conversations about this. I feel like the Arch way of doing a rolling distro, where you just get this flurry of stuff constantly, you just get this barrage of updates constantly coming, and developers are constantly updating applications, and the package builds gets updated, and that gets through to the AUR and the core repository, and you just get this constant flow of stuff, right? My phone's ringing. I worried it's. Oh no, it's not. I thought it was Martin telling me to shut up. But Ubuntu, like if you roll the way that Martin's designed rolling Rhino, you're still in the waves of updates that you get throughout the Ubuntu cycle. So you still like there are waves of updates, and then there's a beta, and then the archive freezes for a bit, and so you'll see no updates for like a week, and then there'll be a flurry of updates again, and then there'll be no updates or minimal updates leading up to the release date in October, and then when the next version archive opens, there'll be another flurry of updates. And you could argue either side of it. Martin argues that, well, that's no different than Arch. Arch will have a flurry of updates one day when Qt gets updated or when GTK gets updated. But the difference is that Arch will probably always track the latest version of everything. Whereas when you're running Rolling Rhino, you're tracking the latest version that the Ubuntu developers have decided to publish into that release, if that makes sense. So from my perspective, it's not quite the same as a real pure rolling distro, but it's as close as you can get on Ubuntu right now without rebuilding the entire world yourself. I hope that makes sense.
Is that kind of how, it's not kind of how, but I know Manjaro kind of holds some stuff back and maybe puts it through testing before I know my Manjaro installations, like I say testing with a caveat.
Maybe puts it through testing.
Right. I with a caveat, but I know it's not as like if I had a true Arch install or even like Endeavor OS, they're just, if it updates, you update. Whereas Manjaro, it feels like it's like delayed slightly. They have maybe an Arch safe packaging. I don't know what it is, but it's a little bit delayed,
Yeah, and the same thing with if you're running the rolling version of Ubuntu, if you're running Devel or Rolling Rhino or whatever, stuff doesn't go from a developer's PC directly to the archive and then directly to your computer. There is a process. It's gated along the way, and there's QA as part of that, of course. So no, it's not as, I don't know how you would. It's not like the fire hose of Arch, where it's just like all these developers are pushing stuff into Arch, and then you get the updates immediately. It's not quite like that. It's a bit more reserved, a bit like Manjaro, sure.
Yeah, and there can even be 3 gateways there. Sometimes developers will push things to a PPA before it actually gets pushed, to test things. So sometimes it'll hit 3 gateways.
Well,
I was going to say,
go ahead, Nate.
So I understand where you're coming from, Alan, but I do kind of think that Mr. Wimpress does have a point that it is a proper rolling release, because I don't see a whole lot of delineation between that and a Tumbleweed, which goes through similar processes, really. And
Yeah,
but
it's very similar
just-
to Tumbleweed, I think.
But
Yeah.
it's sent out in snapshots. And in your case, when there's those pauses, it's just like the rhino stops to eat some grass before it carries on its journey. So it's not like it's really stopping. It's got to refuel and get its energy up so it can go roll on some more.
Drop a deuce.
and-
Yep, it's got things to do. Sure.
And there are certain ways that the updates are gated so that for example, if there was a new version of GTK or a new version of Qt, like you can't just drip feed in the various libraries. You have to hold everything back until you've built all of the world and all of the libraries and everything it's dependent upon. And we have that. We gate that in an optional part of the archive called proposed. And which we don't enable by default, and we don't recommend that anyone uses because it's for us. And the proposed pocket is stuff that's landing on the way to the archive, but it ain't ready yet. Don't use that. Please don't use that.
Never.
But it's a cool tick box, and I've got to tick the box.
Yeah, I know
it's right there.
Really
I want to touch it.
Sounds like I'd get loads of new stuff.
And I feel like this is a good decision. That's why they've hidden it so deep.
Yeah,
that's got to be.
Just turn it on.
Right,
turn it on.
right.
Yeah,
All
Great
those
way to break it.
updates,
Great way.
Get the newest things. Who wouldn't turn it on?
But does this? So my only use case for, not my only, my main use case for going to a rolling release is mainly hardware based. Latest drivers, latest usage, Mesa, that, because we have back to Tony's question. I never get the chance to upgrade because I replace my hardware like every 6 months. I feel like I'm just constantly rebuilding new machines or new laptop or whatever. So, but there are issues sometimes where I have this beautiful new piece of hardware and I can't have Ubuntu running on it yet because it's in between a release cycle. So does this even address that? I know there's okay, so it does.
That's exactly.
Okay.
One of the complaints I have seen is that people say, "Oh, you can't run Ubuntu because it doesn't have the latest Mesa or it doesn't have the latest AMD, whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's right, because the whole point of Ubuntu is that we have stable releases every 6 months, and you can't just go ninjaing in like all the latest drivers and all the latest updates into that stable release, because then that blows away the whole point of it being stable.
Right.
So this is ideal for that. So if you're the kind of person who likes living a bit closer to the edge but not right on the edge of Arch, then rolling Rhino is a great way to do that. Totes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, my original point, I wasn't asking if rolling Rhino is a quote unquote true rolling release, but I'm asking if is a rolling Ubuntu is in talks, like after you saw the demands because of rolling Rhino, it's in the snap page that you linked, it surpassed Arch, and Arch is a huge monster in the Linux space. Even though
is it is it really?
It makes a good T-shirt.
Don't believe Distro Watch. Don't believe the hype.
Believe
also, what you got to factor in.
I'm just going to not comment right now.
If you look down that list, many of those distros don't ship snapd by default. This is not a good, accurate list of the full spread of all the distros. It's a good barometer, and it's a good better than nothing. It's certainly better than Distro Watch. But what you've got to factor in is with Arch users have opted to go down a path where they like the idea of rolling, and getting the latest updates. They generally get stuff from AUR and the community and the core repositories of Arch. They don't need to necessarily go off-piste and go and get a flat pack of something, or go off-piste and go and get a snap of something, because the vast majority of software they need is right in the AUR right there. So they don't need to do it. And so Arch isn't at the top of that list for at least two reasons. One, they have a very rich repository of bleeding edge builds of everything, right? Mostly everything. And the second reason is, what's the second reason? Arch isn't as popular as you think it is. That's the second reason.
No.
It's popular to say I run Arch. That's what it is.
By the way.
Do you doubt? Do you doubt that Arch and Arch-based distros aren't the second most used distros after Ubuntu-based distros or Debian-based distros?
They definitely are not.
Who do you
Yeah,
think? Who do you
Fedora
think
would have
is
to
the
be.
second?
Fedora.
So
Yeah.
right near
Debian.
the top, obviously Ubuntu, then Linux Mint is very, very popular. Fedora is pretty popular. Debian is quite popular. Manjaro is very popular. So Manjaro is kind of, yeah, okay, it's Arch. No, it's not. Depends which side of the fence you sit on. It either is or isn't, right?
No,
But
I'm talking about
pure Arch.
No, the distro and the stuff based on it. Like the first is Debian/Ubuntu, but who do you think is second?
After Ubuntu in like global, and also don't forget, are we just talking about desktop, or are we talking server, or are we talking Raspberry Pi, or
desktop?
Like, my feeling is Ubuntu is the top, and probably Linux Mint is second.
Linux Mint falls under Ubuntu. Like,
Base. Which
No,
base?
it doesn't. No,
Which base?
Which base? Bases.
So the Debian base, and then you have probably Fedora, right? Fedora is the next.
Fedora's up there, and Manjaro's up there. Yeah. It's very difficult because how do you measure that? Because most distros don't give you metrics of how many installs they've got, and because we talk to software developers, some of them have metrics of the distributions that they're installed on, and some of them will tell us, like, here's how we see the world, and that's one of the reasons they talk to us, is because they know that we have a large user base, and they know that Linux Mint has a large user base, and they know that Manjaro has an enthusiastic large user base. And so this is important for developers to know, to be able to target those users and make sure that the instructions on their website are up to date for all these different distros, for sure. But the problem is most distros don't publicly announce that data. Some do. Fedora tell people how many users they've got, and Elementary have an idea of how many users they've got, and Manjaro have some idea. But most people don't want to talk about it because it's that awkward thing that actually it's not a very big number. So you don't really want to go shouting, "Hey, we've got 10 users, everyone!" Like,
no, that would be good.
No,
better to leave it a mystery.
Yeah. We got to have some air of mystery about this whole thing.
Well, Joe, I can't help but remember that you just said you had a brand new Dell XPS sitting there. Where did that come from? I mean, just fall out of the sky or what?
It's amazing what'll fall out of the sky if you got to step in the right places.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an XPS 15, but it was the nose cam version, which just drove me nuts. And but just from a business standpoint, I just don't like the nose cam. So I need a regular. So I do a lot of upgrade down the stream at my office. So when someone else needs a laptop, they never get a new laptop. I get every new laptop and every new office chair, every new monitor, every new stapler, every new pencil sharpener.
You give the old stuff away.
You know how it works. I want to share what I've already used. Nothing new. But so I did go with but to that point, I had my itchy trigger finger on a System 76. And I ended up with an XPS.
Why?
I just couldn't pull it. I couldn't. I kept comparing and contrasting, and I have a problem. Like, don't send me down the cereal aisle at a grocery store and tell me get cereal, because I'll be there for days. I have to look at every ingredient and make sure I'm getting the most weight per box, per ounce, per dollar. But anyways, as I looked through, for the price points, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't pull the trigger. And I was a little bummed about that. I really was, because I thought, here's an opportunity. I'm going to support a Linux first hardware manufacturer. And just when I looked at the value, the value proposition, I just couldn't make that business decision, I guess, is more, and it was from a business decision standpoint. But so yeah, I ended up going with the XPS. I did buy it like open box XPS, which saved me like $400, even though it was still in the wrapper, which made me dance a jig. But yeah, I did end up with another.
Would
XPS,
it have been the same had it been would the choice have been the same if it would have been a new one, not an open box?
No. Okay, so at that point, then it's not the same dollar amount, because the System 76 laptop I was looking at was the Oryx Pro, I think is what I was looking at. It's a nice 15-inch. The only thing that held me back was the screen. So I love that 4K screen on the XPS. Like, it's, once you look at it and use it, and the touch works really good in Ubuntu and in Pop. So I actually like the touch screen. I never thought I'd use a touch screen ever on a laptop, but it does work really nice. So the screen was the only real differentiator for me. And actually the Oryx had a better graphics card option than the XPS. So probably not. Because I would have saved, this XPS probably would have been $2,300, and I could get that Oryx for like 19, I think, to 2,000. But I end up paying 15 for an open box. So yeah, so that's a good point. But I was just still a little saddened, because I really thought, like, I'm doing it. And then I was so disappointed in myself. Like, I literally was talking myself up, like, here I go. And then I just couldn't do it. So I'm gonna go cry now. I'm sad about it. But yeah, there is something there. I think System 76 probably makes some really good hardware. And there's a lot of other ones. I use them just because I use Pop, so they come first to mind. But I know there's others out there. But the price points, it's high for what's available. For what's out there. You're going to pay a premium to support them as well.
Anybody else got any new hardware lately?
Yeah.
What'd you get?
So I have a Pine phone.
Nice.
Which arrived this week, which I have dual booting. It's got Ubuntu Touch, obviously UB ports, but I've also been trying out something called Mobian, which is basically Debian with the Foch shell that the Purism guys have created. So that's quite interesting. I've got that on an SD card in here, and I will talk about this at some point on the Ubuntu podcast probably. And next week I have a Pinebook Pro arriving as well to sit next to this on the desk. So I have all the Pine sat next to each other. So I'm quite looking forward to having a play with that as well.
So I guess I'm not allowed to ask you your first impressions of the phone.
Yeah, you can ask.
What's your first impressions of that?
So my first impression, hardware-wise, it feels lovely. It doesn't feel like a cheap rubbish phone. It feels actually pretty good. Yeah, it's plastic. It's got a removable back. It's got a removable battery. You can chuck an SD card in there. It's got switches in there to turn on and off the various like privacy invading features of wireless and Bluetooth and all that kind of stuff. Hardware wise, I really like it. For the price, it feels lovely, and that's, for me, that's a big thing, is how it actually feels in your hand. I haven't used it enough to be able to test the software. I did have some challenges when I first got it, but I managed to work through all of that, and I've got software update. I've got the latest version of UB ports on here. So really, I'm just playing with it at the moment. It's not my primary machine. It will never be my primary daily driver. It's something to play with and, tinker with. And that's really what it's for. It's a developer tool. But yeah, once the Pinebook Pro arrives, going to have a play with that. I know a few other interesting people in the community who've also been sent Pinebook Pros by the Pine people. So there'll be some interesting developments coming out over the next few months, I think, with ARM-based distros.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You guys got anything you want to bring up? Tony?
Yeah, you were just asking about hardware.
Yeah.
I've just bought myself a new HP color laser printer, a 150 NW. And when I first set it up, it wouldn't work in Mint 19.3, but out of the box, 2004 and Mint 20, recognize it straight away, install the drivers, and it just works. It's a great little printer.
You know, it's funny. Just this past week, I don't know why I was there. I was on Reddit on R Linux somewhere. And somebody had brought up, what printer should I buy and something. And I was like totally shocked at the amount of people that there were so many people that would give suggestions on what to buy so that it would work right out of the box with Linux. But there were so many other people that said, we don't even buy a printer anymore. Like, it's not even useful anymore in today's day and age when you email everything, and we don't even buy a printer. And to be honest with you, I rarely ever print. I mean, we do have a printer, but I rarely ever need to print anything out. I don't know about you guys. What do you think?
No.
Same.
Yeah, I agree
no
totally,
printers.
100%. I have a printer up on top of my armoire here that I was actually used to be on that corner desk that's which way, that way. And but I moved it because it was in the way, took up space, and I use it once a year. Like tax season, I'll print out a hard copy of my taxes and I'll store them away. Other than that, no, I don't. There's no reason to print. You can do everything digitally now. You can sign everything through, any important documents that you need to sign for, this, that, the other thing. You can just, take a picture of it, sign it, send it out, and you're done. It's digital age now. You don't really need a printer for anything unless you're a business and you have to have hard copies and like a doctor's office or something like that. But personally, no.
All the homeschooling stuff that we're doing now, printing because you got to practice your letters, man. So yeah, my daughter's 4.
This is true,
it's
Leo.
Time.
This
Come
is
on,
true.
you got to find a way to take a picture and send it digitally.
I make my kids write on the iPad, and they. But
she does that too. Yeah.
To the printer's point, though, so I don't have a printer at my home anymore. I haven't needed one, but in my office, every time I boot up, I find every printer on the network within 15 seconds, and it's going to tell me about it. And it's going to say, I found this one and this one and this one. Oh, you got this one. And oh, hey, you forgot about this one. And I got 20 minutes of printer profiles popping up on my screen. I either need to get rid of half the printers at the office. Can I turn that off? Does anybody know?
I was going to ask the same thing.
That is the most, I would have been excited about it 5 years ago when I couldn't get a printer to work. But now I don't need a printer. Printers are great on Linux now because we don't need them. But now that it finds them all, how can I turn that off?
There's a related bug in cups at the moment that if I'm sat here at midnight, I know it's midnight because I get a notification that my printer has been discovered at midnight every single day at midnight. And I filed a bug about this, and it's because there's some cron job somewhere that restarts cups. And when it restarts cups goes, oh, I'm new in the world. I've just been born, and I've never seen any of these printers before in my life. And oh, look, there's a printer. There's one. I'll tell you about it. And so that's a bug. I don't know about. Yeah,
I don't know. One way you might be able to do it is turn off Avahi, which is the discovery protocol.
Is that what that is?
Yeah,
it comes on every distro. I don't know what it's there for.
Well, there's a lot of
really
things,
cool.
There's a lot of things you might neutralize by doing that. All the discovery. You think about all the discovery things that your computer is doing.
Yeah.
You'll neutralize all that too. But if you turn off Avahi, you won't be able to discover your printers.
Are you trying to break my system, Dan? No. I feel like you're trolling me. I'm gonna message you Monday when I can't from my other device because I've turned everything off now. Thanks.
Okay.
I love my printer scanner copier from HP. I got an OfficeJet Pro 8600. I use the scanning function all the time. I can scan network folder or scan directly onto the computer. I use that all the time because I'm a little bit obsessive compulsive, and I store all my mail, all my documents digitally. And so I like to have that ability. And so I use a scanner more than the printer, but my kids' schoolwork, I do have them do a lot of paper stuff. And also I make a lot of product for doing memory work and whatnot. And so I print that out because it's not, as cool as it would be to set up our CRT and have them use that for all their information. It's just too heavy and I don't want to move it.
It'll kill somebody.
Nate, remind me to get back to that point then. About the HP.
The CRT?
No, about the HP printer. Just as a note to remind me. Robin, go ahead.
Hey, yo. How are you? Yeah, I was just going to say, Tony, have you tried seeing if HP Lip does any good for you? And also, have you opened up Chrome to see if it's detected a new printer to be set up on the cloud?
Well, funnily enough, when I was in 19.3, I downloaded and installed the latest HP Lib, and that enabled cups to recognize the printer was there and the driver was there. I installed that, but HP Lib itself won't work in 19.3. Whereas when I went into 2004 and into 20 for Mint 20, it worked out the box and was able to print a test page within 10 seconds of the computer recognizing that the printer was there. And the reason I went out and bought this printer was because of the modeling I do. We print decals and things like that for the models. And I also make preserves and do a lot of canning, so I print labels for that.
Did cups actually give you a selection of printer drivers possibly you could try? Because, for example, I've got in the corner here a wireless HP NV 5030, which is an all-in-one job. But the drivers that get offered to me through any Linux distros is not the drivers for that one. So I have to choose drivers for the 5500. And it still works fine. I don't know why, but that driver still seems to work, and I can still scan, I can still print it, no problems at all. But even before installing a driver, if I've got Chrome open, then as soon as the printer gets turned on, it says, "Oh, we found your printer on the network, and you can now use it as a cloud-based printer." So
yeah,
I don't know.
Cups recognised that the HP Color Laser 150 was there and gave a recommended driver. I installed that and it worked. I've had that in the past with Brother printers where it uses a close kind of cousin to that printer and installs that driver as the recommended one, and they still work.
Ugh, don't get me started on Brother.
Me either. Oh, the troubleshooting those pains in the butt.
Oh, brother. Do I jump in and say that I like it?
Oh my gosh.
Is right now the good time for that?
It's a dad joke, Dan.
I know. Well, I fit the bill.
I love that you guys are all talking about Chrome on Mint.
Wow.
Okay. Is that a thing?
Moving on.
Yeah. Tony,
we're talking about Chrome here, not Chrome.
Did you say you were going to use Chrome on Mint?
Tony, come on in and save us.
Okay, sorry.
I see you got your hand up. Well, I lowered it now. Sorry.
Yeah, I've got a HP LaserJet all-in-one. It wouldn't on Mint 19.3 either. You just get it to work. But I also found that by going to Mint 20, it works straight away out of the box, no problem. So maybe it's because mine is a newer model. It's an M28W. I think it's because it's a newer model. The drivers just weren't available for 19.3, but they were in 20. And it's the same with Ubuntu. Any 19 point whatever Ubuntu, it wouldn't work. But as soon as Ubuntu brought out the 2010s, exactly the same principle. So I mean, Mint's based on Ubuntu, so it's the same.
I'm seeing a bit of a pattern here. Has it got anything to do with long-term support releases of those bases, perhaps?
Possible. I never thought of that.
Alan, any thoughts? Because I'm just thinking here, 19.3, was it based on 1804 in Mint? I don't know.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
That's a bit odd then. Very odd.
Don't know anything about Mint. Sorry.
All right. Big Pod, you got your hand up. Go right ahead.
Well, I also have a printer in next room over there. It's wirelessly connected to the network and it's HP, so it works on Linux. Actually, a friend of mine one day called me and he had a guy who wanted a printer for Linux, and he asked me what he should recommend. And I said, there's only one choice, HP. Nothing else works on Linux.
Well, yeah, you're not going to get the same experience, I think, with a different brand. HP seems to be pretty top notch.
They work out of the box most of the time.
They do.
Others you have to play around with.
Well,
to get it maybe working.
I have a Xerox laser printer here at home, and that just seems to work with every distro. It's very similar to the HP experience, where it just kind of works.
Eris, go ahead.
So I have a brother printer, and the printer gets picked up by Ubuntu easily. But the scanner, I always have to install the drivers. Is HP like that? Does the scanner work automatically with HP, or is it just the printer itself? The printing ability.
I can scan with HP just fine.
I always have to install a separate bit to get the scanner to work.
Yeah, I scan over the network from my HP printer scanner. It's downstairs, so I send one of the children to put some paper in it, and then I press a button up here, and it scans into my computer up here over the network. It's pretty funky.
Computer Kid, you got some input on printers?
Yeah, I was just gonna OnePlus the HP thing. They always work fine for me after I install that HPLIP driver, which I'm on Arch, so maybe on Ubuntu it gets auto installed or something. But I always have to go hunt it down out of a repo, and then it's always a bit tricky. I always use cups, and then I'll put in the wrong password, and then it will get mad because I put in the wrong password, and then I can't figure out how to reset it. And so I always have to go figure out how to reset it every time. I really should write it down, but
it doesn't feel important until you go to do it again.
Right.
Where's the fun in writing it down, though, right?
Yeah. Discovery.
It's an adventure every time.
I thought that's what the Arch Wiki was for.
Well,
yeah, probably. I've never actually read the cups page on ArchWiki, so I should.
I think Ubuntu does ship. I think all the flavors of Ubuntu ship with HP lib, but they don't ship by default with EHP lib GUI, which is the little indicator that controls it. But that's optional. You can add that later if you want to.
Well, the other thing that I wanted to bring up was one of the main suggestions on this thread was that you should get a laser printer instead of the regular printer, just because of the ink usage and it doesn't dry out and you get longer lasting thing. So is that the general consensus? Am I doing it wrong? Should I get a laser printer or what?
Yeah, laser printer all the way.
Yeah, I think so.
Have a normal printer.
You have a little bit more investment in the upfront costs because the inkjet you can go find replacements relatively cheap, but you don't get near the life out of the replacements. Whereas laser, you're going to buy that cartridge, put it in. It's going to cost 10 times as much, but you might get 15 times the use out of it. So we've switched everything to laser.
So when were you guys going to tell me this?
Well, we stopped printing, so it really doesn't matter.
Okay.
The thing I was going to say, I mean, how often do you actually print something?
Well, no, but that's part of the problem because what happens is I don't print that often, and then I end up needing it only once in a while. And by the time I go need it, it's either drying out or, it's like, so that is the issue.
Yeah. Then you definitely need a laser. I mean, I've got kids at school and they're always printing off their homework, but I've signed up to HP's cartridge replacement, so I pay 99p a month or whatever it is they charge me, and as long as the printer stays online, it's always talking back to their servers, so the printer sends messages back to their whatever it is and says, oh, you've printed so many pages this month, we're realizing you're low on black ink, without me even knowing about it, or I get an alert on my desktop. Next thing you know, a box has arrived in the post and, oh, here's your replacement cartridge. So some months I can go where I receive no cartridges because obviously the printer's got enough ink, but I'm pretty good to know the fact that that pound I spend per month it's not sort of a domestic waste, but it's an investment, and I just know that I don't have to shell out 60 quid in cartridges each time they run out. So it's always good to know that there's a friendly box coming through the post when it knows that it's running low on ink.
Robin, you just said like 10 trigger words for a Linux room. Automatic reporting. They know what I'm printing. It goes to the cloud. Ink shows up at my door. I'm watching the eyeballs of
Everybody was
in here. They're
triggered. Everybody.
Get him out of here. Get him out of here.
You said the
He's
C
spying on
word.
us. The CIA's watching us. Yeah, like these. Yeah. Sorry, Robin. I'm
don't
glad
want
that works
Disconnect it
for
from
you.
your network.
I'm always afraid if I put my printer in the cloud, it could get too wet up there. And so I put it in the cup, but I make sure the cup is very dry.
I don't think anybody needs to say anything.
What I also find very
half full
helpful.
or half empty.
Yeah. What I also find very helpful as well is that you can send, if you're on your phone, you can get a document or email come up, and just out of the blue you can just send it to the printer and it'll print it off for you. Or I can be out and about in the street, and I can just forward that or email that attachment to an email address that's on my printer, and if the printer's on or the kids are at home and the printer's on and I'm not around, I come home and my printer has
Get that IP address, Andy?
No.
Okay. I mean,
it's a link. It's actually email for.
It's an email.
HP servers.
Yeah.
And HP then sends it to your printer. I actually have an inkjet. Yeah, I have an inkjet at home, but I have the one with the tank, so I just poured the color in. That is, if you're gonna have an inkjet, forget the cartridges. Those things are crap.
Okay.
Always.
Yeah, get an eco tank. That's what I say.
So what you're saying is that you're giving HP access to your email. So they're emailing you. You're sending a link to your computer, and they're printing it out for you. Okay.
No. You set the when you set the printer up for the first time, you have the option within the HP configuration to actually set it up for remote printing. So basically, anyone with that email address can effectively send an attachment to it, and it prints it off.
Yeah.
But obviously, that's based on who's sharing that, who you're sharing that email address with, for example. But it's not like a robin.just@hplib.inc sort of thing. It's a generic email address that's made up of like letters and numbers, etc., and then it's unique to you. But obviously, you've got to remember that. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead, Nate.
I was gonna say I do have cartridges for mine, but they have 4 separate cartridges, and I don't go through that much ink. And I do sometimes try and get like the cheap cartridges, but those usually bite me in the butt periodically, so I don't do that as often. But it does keep itself from getting all locked up. It'll every once in a while it'll surprise me and purge itself behind me. And if it's a quiet day and you're not listening to anything, it is a little jarring when you hear the thing go use its pump. But outside of that, no, it's been great. I've had it since 2013, I think now, and it's been a steady runner. So it's their office jet line. So I think that there's a difference.
Yeah,
in the
there is a
quality.
difference. Yeah.
But price per page is actually pretty darn cheap. It's pretty competitive to laser.
Yeah,
Maybe
I have
not
the
sure, but
Office
it's
Jet as
competitive.
well. It's a great machine when I use it.
What Robin was referring to is called HP. Basically, you send an HP email, you send a file, and then it connects to your printer and prints. It's, for me, a bit scary. I disabled that when I got the printer, disabled that right away.
Yeah, you can disable it. That's not. I mean, I've enabled it for the kids' benefit, but it's disabled by default, so you got no worries there.
So for stocking stuff, I rather than pay them, not knowing if I'm going to need a cartridge or not, I went with the. My policy is I bought a full set of laser toner for my laser printer. I bought an HP laser, and I bought all 4 of the cartridges from Amazon, whatever the cheapest thing was, and I put them in the cupboard near the laser printer. And the day that I change any one of them, I buy a new one. So I always have stock, and I always know like the time to buy it is when I use it, and I've always got a spare. And that spare is always going to last until Amazon can deliver me a new one. And so I think maybe I forgot to order one once and we ran out, and that was a calamity. But yeah, because when you need to print, that's the problem, is like you never print anything. And then the day you need to, and it doesn't work because you've run out, is the day you really need to print something. I try and keep it in stock if I can.
It's guaranteed to be 10 p.m. And you need something for tomorrow morning
on a Sunday night.
Yeah, on a
Sunday night.
Yeah.
School reports due Monday.
Yeah.
Every time, never fails. Go ahead, computer
Pleasure's
kid.
life.
So I just wanted to, we were talking about having the printer in the cloud, and I wonder if you could do something similar with a NAS or home server and run something like Octopi and then connect that to your printer. I've been considering doing that recently because our printer has this tiny little bit of, I'm assuming, RAM. And if you queue up more than like 2 print jobs, which commonly happens if like just downloaded a bunch of school files because we homeschool too. We've been homeschooling since before it was cool. And
You're not old enough. You're not that old.
That's my line.
Yeah.
So yes,
But
you
yeah.
can do that.
Yeah. There's
You could get a Raspberry Pi and run cups basically on a Raspberry Pi and connect your printer to it if it's not a networked printer. So, if you have an old school printer that's USB attached, as I have sat next to me, a proper old Oki Data Systems B410 for those playing along at home, a black and white laser printer.
I used to
have
sell
a Raspberry
those.
Pi. They're great. It cost me 10 quid. You plug your printer into the Raspberry Pi and it's running cups, and it can just share that over the network, and then anyone can print to it. And you could connect all your printers that way and have that as the buffer, the print. It's basically what we used to call, before you were born, we used to call a print server. And we used to go and buy print servers that were little boxes that we attached to the back of printers, and that network enabled our printers. Yes.
This I can definitely attest to this. This is how I ran a Raspberry Pi for about 8 to 12 months before I got a little Wi-Fi dongle for my printer. It was fantastic. I loved it.
I know some routers or routers, depending on where you are, they have a USB connection for that certain purpose, so that you can plug a USB printer into them and share them up that way too.
If you're going to go the router route, you have to say routers. You got to hard T it. Routers.
It's
If you're going
Europe.
English, you go route.
It's Middle Europe, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm saying you can do it, but you got to hold the hard T. You got to hit the T right.
So, Robin, how long have you been doing this with this HP printer? I mean, is it actually saving you money, or is it just saving you just the headache of getting the cartridges?
I would say it's saving me money because I've signed up to their lowest tier, so I'm on 50 pages per month. So I either go over or I go under, and when I go under, they carry it over to the following month. And cartridge-wise, I am happy that I don't have to go down to the shop and shell out 50, 60 quid each time for a new pack of cartridges. I would say I've probably done, and in the 2 years I've had the printer now, probably about 3 sets of cartridges, so it's really good. I mean, they do know when it's running low, and they will send me a box through the post, and it's fully recyclable. I can just pop the old cartridges in an envelope, stick it in the post box, and it goes back to France, I think it is, and they recycle it there. I've had no issues with it. I mean, I will say, in terms of drivers, I used to have issues trying to get the thing to work on Endeavour OS. But since their April release, no issues at all. Just boot it up, it works straight away. I do have a couple of issues trying to get it to work in SUSE, but I downloaded the HP lip, and because I knew what I was doing with cups, it's working perfectly fine now. But again, as I say, the only distribution where it has to use a more newer driver is Endeavour OS. So it's probably Arch that's the issue there, I think. But apart from that, no problems at all.
I've just looked at my Amazon order history for printer toner, which I thought would be super scary, but it looks like I've bought one a year, and the laser printer I purchased. Sorry, I'm getting echo from Robin. The laser printer I purchased in 2013. It looks like I've had this 7 years, and I've bought one a year, and they're £28. It's like nothing for an entire year's printing. That feel and that thing's just keep on trucking. So yeah, I'm still on the yes, get a laser, definitely.
Joe. How you been, man?
Okay. Yeah, you know, you guys are. I know I dropped a couple links in there for you, Rocco, and Telegram, and I see Eris wants it too. The link I dropped was for my particular brother printer. The company's name is Linkyo. I put it in the chat. I have not had one issue. I see that their individual cartridge, I was misspoken. I said $10 because it used to be, it was 15. They have a combo where you could get 2 cartridges plus the roller tray, which they say every so many cartridges you should replace it. I didn't until mine was growling, and I still used it for a while, and then I did put the new one in. It's been fine. It's for my brother printer, but it's on Amazon. And they've been working really great because I was looking into refill cartridges initially, or refilling my own, I should say. And for the same money, I was able to buy these. And the best part is like our local Office Depot or Office Max will take back the old empties from that company and still recycle them. So it's really kind of nice. The one thing I will tell you, if you buy a new printer, typically what a lot of them have is they don't have the what I call what are called high yield cartridges, which is a larger toner quantity. They come with a starter. So if it may say like my printer will get 3,000 copies, let's say, it's may get 500 or 600, and all of a sudden you go, I'm out of toner, what's going on? And then I found out that that was their starter cartridge that comes with it.
Mhm.
But when I buy these, my wife is a very, very busy realtor, and she'll print like books with some of the stuff she does. And then I print my things in between, and I bet you I don't change it out maybe once a year, maybe, you know. So they do get what they say when you find them. So I would say do your due diligence for your product and find out. There are some not so good replacement cartridges out there too, because I did try one once and I got 5 copies and it stopped working. I have not had one issue, and I've ordered these several times. So it's, if you wanted to share the link, it's entirely up to you. I'll put it in our private chat here too.
Yeah, Linkyo's good. I use them for our, I think we've got seven laser printers at the office. And I use Linkyo. I mean, it's on Amazon. It's easy. I think I have it on subscribe and save even. I'm kind of doing the subscribe and save version of Robin's.
Yeah, and I don't know if they have, I didn't look that close to see if they have color, because there are color lasers too.
Yeah, they have color. Yep.
But yeah, so that's even better. Yeah, because a lot of times my wife will ask me, you know, she keeps forgetting this only prints black and white. So, but for us, the handful of times we need color is very rare, and she can go into her office and print color when she needs it. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Anybody else on the whole printer thing? All right. What else you guys got? You guys got some awesome subjects today. So what else do you have? Anything? Okay. So I was on Twitter the other day, and I noticed that Ikey Doherty is always into something new, and he was the guy for Solus, and he left, and you know, I think everybody knows Ikey. I don't think you need a little bit of history on him, but he has this new thing that he's working on, which is called Serpent OS, and it's basically a different take on Linux distribution. So
I think what you're referring to as a Linux distribution is actually a new /Linux distribution.
Somebody mute Computer Kid, please.
Okay, let's get
where's that button?
I got him. Done.
Got him.
Done.
Oh my gosh.
Done.
But one of the things that, so for what they aim to do with Serpent OS, and I'm looking on their website right now, and it says the vast majority of Linux distributions have highly similar goals, and you can best describe them by using common industry buzzwords like modern, lightweight, privacy-oriented, respecting, user-friendly desktop. And we're focused on building a Linux distribution that serves our own needs, chiefly a Linux distribution for people who want to use Linux, not a Linux-based OS, focusing on interoperability with Mac OS and Windows. So they're not looking for that type of distro. That's not what Serpent OS is about. So they're going to be, I guess, building this. I don't know if they're going to be building it from scratch, but they're definitely going to be using different base things than what a normal distribution. And I just wanted to know if anybody had heard about it, if you get any feelings on it. What do you think about that?
Well, I saw it, and one of the most funny things was the same paragraph. It said it is for workstations, and then 2-3 lines lower, it said it won't support NVIDIA. So those two things don't go together very well. Those things go together better. So if you don't have NVIDIA, you can hardly have a workstation nowadays, sadly.
Yeah, well, you get kind of a feel of what they're doing, or Ike's working on it. What is it? Bullet point 4 says opinionated by default. So, you know, it seems that I kind of get what they're doing. I don't know if there's I don't know of a use case or a demand for it. There's always a use case. You can make anything fit what you want. Is there a demand for this thing? Do you guys hear?
I think it's an attempt to push things forward, isn't it? I mean, there's no X11. They're moving all of the tooling away from GNU, and what was the other thing? There was something else in there. Yeah, no legacy boot, right? So I mean, they're dropping just a bunch of old stuff that, I mean, you're going to get a million arguments saying, well, I still have a 32-bit machine that I bought in 1989, and I really want to still run Debian on it. So I mean, you know, you'll have those, but I think overall, that's what he did with Solus. That's exactly what he did with Solus. He was like, this is the way I think it should be done. Here's how we're going to do it. And Solus has got its little niche now. So I don't know.
I don't know, like
successful before.
Lopping off NVIDIA support because it's not part of the, you know, because it's not integrated from the kernel or whatever it is that you know is holding it up. That doesn't feel like pushing things forward with compatibility.
No.
That kind of feels like demanding of this massive industry leading video card company, you do it my way or see you later. And it just feels kind of.
You're right. I'm not mad about it because I'm all AMD over here as far as video cards go. So it doesn't affect me at all. I can test it just fine.
Well, you are now, but we've seen this flip flop, right? You remember
Not
when
from
everything
me.
was well, but
Not
so
from
just,
me.
But
No,
no.
in
But
Linux, though.
Think in Linux. Even in the world. Think back. You guys remember the 90s, right? You know, you would go buy your video card, and it was at Radeons. I think were huge in the 90s, and we weren't talking about NVIDIA graphics, right? We were talking about Radeons, and then
ATI.
ATI, yeah, that's it. Sorry, ATI was what.
Don't remind me of the Catalyst drivers, dude.
Absolutely terrible, but it was what was there. Everybody was on the ATI bandwagon.
The drivers
it was, Dan. It was worse than Linux.
It was bad.
Yeah.
But then NVIDIA, you know, AMD let the market go. You know, that NVIDIA surpassed them. They innovated, kind of what we see with this Intel AMD processor battle that's going on right now. We see Intel kind of has gotten a little comfy. AMD's like, all right, here I come to eat your lunch, and I'm going to do the best I can. More cores. So yeah, AMD now. But what if AMD falls off again and it's back to NVIDIA and it's still a proprietary, its only thing. And now I'm the number one supporter of Serpent OS.
When NVIDIA takes a dump,
do anything.
Then Serpent OS will be like, oh, look what just popped up in our repository, the NVIDIA binary.
Well, you know what? Maybe it would take something like that for NVIDIA to open source their drivers or to add it to the kernel like AMD has been doing. So if that would happen, that may, you know, change the landscape, and then it may be in Serpent OS. Who knows?
Right. It would. If that would happen. But do we think?
I know that's a long shot, dude. I know. That's
what I'm just saying. Like, yeah, it would be nice, and maybe if I mean, we were talking about numbers of Ubuntu. I mean, not Ubuntu, but Linux desktop installations overall. The entire Linux ecosystem could say we're not using NVIDIA anymore, and I don't even think they'd blink at this point, right? I mean, because they didn't before blink.
Well, that's not
would they blink?
True. Well, think beyond gaming.
Sure.
Think beyond gaming.
CUDA
stuff, right?
Yep. CUDA cores, man.
All of that stuff is done on Linux.
Yeah.
So
but that hasn't pushed them to open source anything.
Well, why should they? That doesn't.
Well, that's
doesn't
what
make it better.
Yeah, sure.
People are still going to install
right
Linux with the NVIDIA binary driver in order to use the compute capability of the hardware they've purchased. Making it open source won't make more people buy NVIDIA cards. That's
No.
just a fantasy.
Well, one,
It's not gonna
I would.
happen. One.
Well, you are
Leo.
you are a
This one.
small minority.
Yeah.
Yep, a minority of
Vast majority
one.
won't.
But if all of a sudden Linux took the stance of, well, we're just not going to use NVIDIA anymore because it's not supported in down, upstream in the kernel, whatever. I think what's going to happen is those people that needed the CUDA processing, they're just going to go somewhere else, right? I think Linux just shoots itself in the foot. So I think, I could be wrong, but they're going to need to get that work done regardless.
Where would they go?
Linux can
Windows.
never take a
They
stance.
go to Microsoft or wherever they got to do to get it done. I mean,
And
right?
really, you can still install it, even if we as a community decide we won't use Linux. They will still release drivers, and people will still be able to install them. It doesn't mean we will, just because we decide, it doesn't mean drivers will still be there.
Well, I'm saying if
people who need them install them.
Yeah, if the community decided, if all the distros were like, we're blocking NVIDIA, they're going to take the Mint stance. I'm blocking this.
If
they're going to be empty packages, and your NVIDIA drivers are going to be
Wow,
empty packages.
you just won't stop, Dan.
I don't think.
They'll go to
Rocco,
AMD.
your
If there's no
co-host.
Intel, they'll go to AMD. If there's no AMD, then if there's no NVIDIA, they'll go to AMD. If there's no AMD, they'll just use Intel graphics.
Intel integrated CUDA processing.
No.
That'd be cute.
CUDA is way in front of any other type of compute that define graphics cards. So they'll find a way to install drivers.
Intel is coming out. Intel is
Yes, but
graphics cards though.
With
those,
what? Oh, with it. Yeah, they're.
But
It's
also
dedicated
a lot of
CUDA.
boards come with the integrated graphics, which is good enough to run. You can't run gaming and all that kind of junk off of them, but you can still get the video output to do your daily stuff with the integrated graphics that come on the board.
Yeah, but I think
those are Intel integrated graphics.
To Alan's point, though, the computing process, the power is from those video cards, right? Bitcoin mining, other than async stuff, right? That number crunching ability that it has, that's where the value is at large, not just gaming. So,
well,
Jason,
if we look at
forget
machine
about the
learning,
graphics, integrated graphics too, and the 3400G and what'll be 4400G and all that, which you can game on.
Yeah, I've got a couple of 3400G
lighter specs, but you still could game on it.
Mm-hmm.
I completely argue the gaming thing. I mean, Solitaire works just fine on any graphics card.
We all know that you love them
What about
flashy
Sudoku?
graphics, Dan.
Yeah,
we know you, Dan.
Sudoku
Yep.
and Sudoku, but
yeah,
Dan's like
48.
I need 32 colors, and maybe not even that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, going back to the
But
original point.
one-
Okay, go ahead, computer kid.
One thing is that Linux will never decide anything, because if all the distros had a majority that ruled and said we're not going to do NVIDIA, you would have 5 more distributions spring up that would do it. Like, Linux is never going to decide anything. We will just either continue on the path we're on, or we'll fragment further. Like, no, we're never going to decide.
then protest distros will start existing. Well, welcome to the protest distro world.
Never heard of a
Yep.
protest distro becoming successful. Wait.
Stop it. Well, going back to the original point, what is your basic take on Serpent OS? What about that whole idea of doing it in that way?
Good luck to them.
Yeah.
Honestly, to me, it sounds a bit like Fedora in that they're pushing things further, but Fedora is kind of like they're not exactly pushing things forward in that, like, this is your only option to do it the forward-thinking way. They're kind of like, you can do it the modern way or the forward way. And Serpent OS kind of sounds like the forward way. They're not going to stay with what's here. They're going to keep moving forward. And also, the new joke was because they don't have new in Serpent OS.
Dave?
I was just going to ask. To me, it kind of sounds like, what was Linux distro, Clear OS was it? He was working with Intel on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there.
Clear Linux.
It's strong. It's big.
It sounds kind of like he's taken some ideas from that and going his own way.
Yeah.
Because I know that when he left, he had created the what was the indie gaming studio, Lipsky or something, and he was totally in on using Vulkan, AMD and Vulkan with that. So it sounds like to me like he's taking ideas from his last two major projects that he was doing, and he's kind of trying to mesh them together to help. Because I know with the Clear OS, part of what they were trying to do was finding new ways to speed up the computing, especially with Intel products. But to me, that's what it kind of sounds like what he's trying to do.
Well, either way, I mean, he's always had he's always been opinionated in things, but he's always had some great ideas that nobody has ever implemented. So I wish him the best. I don't know if it'll be a success or not, but I hope it is for his sake. All right, we are out of time, and it is last words. So, Joe, last word.
Well, glad everybody made it today. It was fun. We had some good conversations, minus distro discussion, which I really enjoyed. Not that the distro discussion is bad, but it was nice to just have a nice, solid conversation about things that you guys came up with this time instead of us piling through a list that we think is important. So it was really cool to have these conversations. Enjoyed it. Everybody be safe. The world is crazy out there right now, and see you soon.
Well, I would second that. If anybody in the YouTube chat or any of you guys, it flows so much better when you guys bring up topics that you want to talk about that you feel are important. So if anybody has any suggestions for topics or things that we should talk about, there's so many ways to get a hold of us, whether it's Telegram or the website, the contact form, just email me. However way you want to do it, just send those in, and as Joe put it, it won't be just a topic that I think is important and nobody wants to actually talk about. So, Dan, last word.
I agree wholeheartedly with those comments. Don't forget about Discourse or Discord or any of the other billions of ways we have to get a hold of us. And it's been a great conversation today. So really, really enjoyed. Look forward to another one. Don't forget to check out Linux User Space. First episode drops Monday. Yeah, this week.
This Monday. Yep.
Yeah, 6 a.m. Check it out. Good stuff.
Harris, last word.
Great discussion. I look forward to the next battle, and I look forward to the next Printapalooza.
The Bearded Wonder. Go ahead.
Thanks, Rocco. Yeah, it's been a great discussion today. I can't believe that my initial question generated so much talk, but it was great. Thanks for responding to that. It's been great because I couldn't make my lug this morning, so that was, it was great to join a load of geeks and get my geek fix for a Saturday. And I'm looking forward to the new show on Monday. It's already queued up in the podcatcher, so I shall be listening to that when it comes out. So thanks again. And for anyone who listens live, we're recording Mintcast tomorrow night for the next 2 weeks. So join us at, I think it's 3 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. UTC, if I remember correctly.
Where do they go, Tony?
If you go to mintcast.org, and there's a link to the live feed on there.
Awesome. Thank you for the great topic, Tony. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks.
Joshua, last word.
I didn't really talk today at all, but it was always nice listening to what's going on, and I'll see you tonight.
All right, Tony?
Yes, it's installed. It's the wrong show.
It's the wrong show, Tony.
Wrong show, sorry. I'll do that later. Yeah, the European one's good. It has a different feel to the normal one, and it was a good range of topics. Yeah, and I look forward to joining you all later. Hopefully, I'll still be. Those that will be there, I'll see. Those that will not be there and will be no doubt snoring, I'll see in 4 weeks' time on the next European version.
Dave, last word.
Thanks, Rocco, for an awesome show. Great topics, great discussion. Had a really good time. Look forward to the next European edition, and I'll see everyone later tonight.
Computer Kid.
I was great. I was leaning back, and then you said Computer Kid, and I knocked my earbuds out. But thanks for hosting the show. It was fun. Sorry if I made some terrible jokes. Hope everybody's having a good week, and I'll see you all, I guess, later this evening.
The jokes were no worse than Michael Tennell's. Just saying. Jason, last word.
Well, as usual, I want to say thank you to Joe, Dan, and you, Rocco, for making this possible for us to get together and have these great conversations. And it was great conversations today. Like I said, this is a different layout than the later on the show that's happening later on. And it was great just to sit back, talk different versions of technology, and get everybody's input. It was just a great time.
Nate.
Core 18 Snap, OpenSUSE Tumbleweed is number 40 on the list. Not sure what that means, but it's number 40. Thanks. It was lots of fun, and I look forward to the next biddle.
Alan?
I find these super fun, and I love the fact that I can sit with a bunch of nerds and talk about tech and talk about stuff that my, in inverted commas, real friends don't want to talk about. So I find this a very valuable escape from real life. This is my nerd VR right here, and I appreciate you having this every week. So yeah, I may see you at the next one.
Nice. Big Pod.
It's hot here, so can't wait for it to be over so I can shut the light and open the window.
Robin?
As always, great joining up with you guys again every month, and nice to see some friendly faces and some new faces as well on the cast this month around. Yeah, so I've just been having fun with OpenSUSE Leap 15.2 this week. Nate, I've had some great fun trying to get that to work, I can tell you. In fact, I did a 2-hour stream about it all last night, installing it from scratch right through to getting it configured. And the interesting thing to take away from this is if you're trying to get Spotify to work on Leap, I would probably suggest you take a look at my video because there's some solutions there. But great as always. Thanks, Rocco, for doing this. I might catch you on the next one, but if not, I'll see you on August 8th for the next Biddle Europe.
Nice. Leo, last word, brother.
Thanks for letting me sneak in late, and yeah, thanks for putting this on. It's I love this. This is really fun. I will say, at the risk of triggering Joe, I've been playing a lot with Warpinator today, and it's pretty fantastic. You want AirDrop on Linux? This is AirDrop on Linux. Check it out.
I'm just waiting for my second install with Warpinator. I've got one. I launched it, and of course, I don't have any other devices on the network yet. So I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
You fire up that second one, and it's
coming this afternoon.
Joe, last word.
Well, I'm glad I got to catch you guys, even if it was halfway through. One thing I will say about this platform is many of the best discussions and a few of the worst are the unplanned ones. I think that's what makes this a lot of fun and very interesting. And to Alan's point, or Popey, as he likes to be called, maybe your real friends are right here. You ever think of that? Just kidding. Anyway, thanks a lot. Hope to see you guys soon.
All right, that's going to wrap it up. We're going to be back in less than 3 hours for the regular Biddle. I appreciate all of you guys joining me because it was a really, really great conversation. And other than that, as Robin has mentioned, August 8th is the next BDLL Europe. You can join us then, or you can join us in a few hours. Until then, long live Linux.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See yous.
Great day,
Guys,
everybody.
later. On the late
Adios.
show.